Gifted Intensity, a fun and intense chat with my gifted friend Jenna. Jenna is an extrovert, and you can hear in her voice the exuberant energy, which is such an engaging characteristic of hers. As an introvert, my intensity is often hidden or not readily observable to the outsider. However, we both have our deep responsiveness to life, which cannot be separated from the essence of who we are. Like many gifted adults, we have our passions, feelings, intellectual and creative interests, and capacity for action. As Dabrowski noted, intensity of an inner nature is the driving force behind advanced human development. According to the authors of Living with Intensity, 2008, inner intensity provides the fuel for a rich and complex interplay between imagination, intellect, and emotion in the inner psychic milieu, giving rise to higher plasticity in the brain. But this can create an isolated world, setting those individuals apart from others in significant ways. It's not uncommon for gifted children and adults to experience loneliness. If locked inside, inner intensity can be frighteningly alienating and potentially volatile. Without healthy, imaginative outlets, intensity can lead to shutdown, implosion, and deep distress. In Living in Intensity, it's suggested that a balance between interpersonal facility with interpersonal relationships and agency in the world, and a give and take exchange between the environment and the individual is crucial to the human experience of meaning and connection. In The Gift of Intensity by Emmy Lowe, she writes, sensitivity, emotional intensity, what were previously thought of as weaknesses, are now valued qualities that make you stand out. As an intense person, you have the potential to be a true game changer of the world. Being sensitive and intense points to many gifts: intelligence, intuition, unique talents, and creativity. Jenna and I chat about what being intense was like growing up, how we approached learning, the importance of being in nature, what it means to be a multi-potentialite, and so much more. Many thanks to Jenna for giving us such great insights into gifted intensity. We hope you enjoy this conversation, and as per usual, we look forward to your feedback. So let's get started. So Jenna, we're going to have a great chat about gifted intensity. The other day, you told me a great definition as to how you would describe intensity. So let's start there. That was a great one.
I was chatting with a friend and he was saying, "Oh, Jenna, I don't find you intense." And I was dying because I'm like, I'm one of the most intense people I know. This doesn't check out for me. But then we started talking about our definitions of intensity, and he was really grilling me, and I didn't exactly know how I define intensity until I started to think about it a little more. And what I kind of landed on is that intensity is the drive to go further with something than most other people. To think about that, I really started to notice it everywhere. And I'm sure you notice it everywhere too.
Yes, this seems to be quite the theme, particularly among gifted people, that where people stop is often too short, and we would love to go further and deeper, wider, and more complex usually. Is that what you've experienced?
Yeah. And I love the way you frame it too, because I think that really is how I experience it. It's not that I want to go further. It's that other people just stop short. And I'm like, wait, why did we stop? I thought we were going somewhere.
What is it about us that wants to go further and talk more or explore more?
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I always would try to go further, even though people didn't want to. People get really upset and almost threatened, I guess, because I just remember being in religious settings where we'd be having this whole group discussion about this thing we had read in the religious text, and it was so great. I was so excited to be doing that. And then, people would be talking about some things, and I would talk about it more and be like digging in. And then everyone would start to get defensive and freak out. And I'm like, wait, we're just continuing the conversation. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be talking about, this text. Like,
Yes.
Did we even read the same text? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Do you recall as a child, were you someone who asked a lot of questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. As a kid, well, I tried, and my mom could not handle questions. There's lots to dig through in therapy on that,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
he just couldn't handle questions. And of course, I'm the person who asks why about everything. Everything I have to ask why. Why do we have to put the dishes in the dishwasher this specific way? Why do we have to clean the house like this? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to? Oh my God.
Oh,
I would do myself crazy too, but I think some of that was just that inner drive to know everything, I guess. Yeah,
yeah.
she could not handle that. It was
Wow, yes.
because I said so and then done. And, she felt, I don't know, she seemed to feel really threatened by that too. Maybe she just didn't have the capacity to talk to someone about it, or maybe she didn't know why. Maybe some of it was her
Mm,
own coping strategies of, she's coping with something, she's trying to do something and just doing it a certain way, and it has to be done this way. And that's her attempt at coping with something else, or I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, questions were not welcome.
And that must have been incredibly frustrating for you as a child too.
Yeah.
Did you have things around you that you could go and explore and find answers to? I mean, you were pre-internet growing up, were you? Or where
No,
oh,
I
you
was
were internet.
post-internet for sure, but,
Oh,
very highly regulated. My parents really regulated it because I guess they were scared that I would stumble onto something illicit, and so they
yeah.
were like, "You can't use the internet unless we're there." So I didn't really have access to it. Later
Mm.
I developed ways to get access to it on my own. But really I didn't use it for a lot of learning. Like I don't think I really began to enjoy learning until I got to community college,
Uh,
and I started taking some classes there my senior year of high school. I was taking Spanish, and I was taking calculus, and I was taking a couple other things. And learning had always been super easy for me. And I think that was where I kind of felt like it matters. So it's like, oh, I'm actually really good at learning. Let me keep doing this. So I would go to the library and check out quantum physics books and be reading those, and like just lots
uh,
of other stuff. But I think I was more curious on the sciences at that point in my life. Yeah.
what do you think appealed to you the most about the sciences?
I think I had this burning desire to understand how the universe worked and how everything was put together, and just understand everything. I thought I could understand everything, and
Wow.
I thought I was gonna read all this stuff and then make all these new theories myself. And like I don't know what I thought. I guess I think maybe some of it was just trying to find a way to be important in the world or something. But
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Wanting to know the meta mechanics of things is very much a
yeah,
gifted trait, isn't it? You're probably well aware of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the sciences were really complex, and I loved that complexity.
Oh,
I loved how complex everything was, how everything fit together, how math and chemistry and physics were all super deeply interconnected. And I remember my freshman year of college being like, I've decided that I'm going to triple major in math, chemistry, and physics because all of those things are really important together. And how can you study one without studying the others? You need them all to really, make progress in the field. And people told me, they were like, well, at Albion, you can't triple major. That's not an option. I was like, well, I'll be the first. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna do it. Like,
yes. That's a really great example of just amazing, huge, gigantic drive. Wow, you really had it all going on. Wow.
yeah.
So they stopped you. Did you end up doing a double, or did you get down to a single in the end?
No, I ended up getting after a little while, instead of being super involved in the sciences and super interested in that, I became more interested in the whole religious aspect. I got involved with a religious group on campus and got more interested in the spiritual side of things
Right.
and the psychological side of things and more humanistic stuff. So
Mm.
that was what I was really pouring everything into. And I was like, oh, I can graduate in 3 years instead of 4 if I just get this one major. So sure, let's
Right.
just give it.
So, where do you think your learning after college went? Like, where did you start to focus? Did it continue with spirituality or did it broaden? What happened?
Definitely, yeah, definitely continue with the spirituality because I went on staff full time with a religious organization. So I was working with college students full time. And yeah, I read, especially my first year, I got really involved because we had a lot of Black students in the chapter that I was leading of college students. And I also had a lot of Black friends at that point. And so I got really interested in the history of the US and specifically digging to learn more about racism, the history of like race in America, a lot about just systemic oppression in general, and just started to really dig into that stuff. I was like, especially that first year out of college, I was just reading everything. I mean, I read a lot of books.
Yes, a lot of books, yeah. And this was from
Yeah.
the library still, or you were searching Amazon, or how were you
Yeah,
getting?
yeah. Some from the library. Some of it would be just ordering books on Amazon. Some of it would be talking to other people who were working the same job I was, and just trying to get books from them to borrow. Some of it was I got a discount on anything published through the publishing group of the company that I was working for. They had a book publisher too, so I got a discount there, and I bought a lot of books.
So you felt like probably at this stage that you just had like the freedom that you'd always craved, I imagine.
The drive too. I guess for me, the learning has always been about doing something. So I
Yeah.
I wasn't as curious or didn't have that drive to learn as much when I was younger because I didn't have a lot of opportunities to do anything with it. Because studying, I mean, math and science and all that stuff, it didn't mean anything when you're a kid. Like,
Yeah,
whatever, what am I doing with this?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think once I started to find stuff that I was like, "Oh, this can hit the ground somewhere. This is something I could use." And especially once I started to work in the Christian organization and started to be doing all that nonprofit work. Whoa, if I learn this, I can help students. If I learn more about psychology, I can help these students better. The things that I'm driven to learn about are things that I can use. So I'm not as much interested anymore in quantum physics because I'm not gonna use it. I mean, I don't really have any use for it. Like, I'm not a scientist. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of where that drive, and I think that drive has morphed. I almost see the learning drive as like a tool, to get to the doing drive, to be good at something. So I feel like now my drives are more to master things, to be very good at things. Don't know what those things are. They could be anything I get interested in, but
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
like the
yeah.
learning piece is more like I want to be good at this and I want to master this subject or topic, etc., so that
Mm.
I can do something. And I feel like you'd have some resonance with this too, but I was on a call recently for multi-potentialites.
Ooh.
And that sense of, I guess they didn't really have a very good definition for it, but my sense of it was multi-potentialite is just someone who wants to do lots of things, and wants to like pursue lots of things. But I guess for me, I kind of took it as a multi-potentialite is someone who loves the process of gaining master, becoming an expert in something. And it doesn't 100% matter what it is. It has to have something that hooks you.
Yeah.
But the whole excitement and fun of it and drive of it is to become an expert at something. And then once you become an expert at something and do it for a little while, then you get bored of it and you move on to something else. So it's
Yes,
like
yes.
it may not be the best thing to like do a giant career change as a multi-potentialite
The
because
changing of things, and yeah, rather than consolidating and building, and so the traditional way of really having a career. Yeah, it can't do things half-hearted. It's no good.
that
One thing becomes boring, like you said, after a while, and that boredom is the worst thing. This need for more stimulation, more intensity in another way, something new and different. Yeah,
Yep.
it's so crucial to understand about ourselves and move on as quickly as we possibly can. And so, relationships, we've got to touch on that. Let's go for friendships first of all. How important do you think it is, this intensity matching, or at least getting close to being able to be in that space with someone else as a
Yeah, I guess from my like attempts to balance that, I can't say I'm good at balancing it, but I think some of the attempts are that you have to have somewhere for that intensity to go in your friendship circle, in like the multitude, right? Because you don't just have one friend, you have lots of different friends. And
friend.
so you need to be able to balance that intensity. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So if all of your friends are super involved in the climbing gym, and not a lot of people that I meet there are super intense in the same ways that I am. There's some intensities there, but maybe more physical, just a little different than usually what I'm intense about. And
Mm.
so if I don't have enough people outside that space to have intense conversations and, things and thoughts and experiences with, then sometimes it will go in there and I'll lose friendships because I'm too intense in those spaces and people can't handle it.
Uh,
People don't like it. And so, yeah, I think the friendships thing is hard because you have to find people who are not just intense in general, because there's some people that I've met who are intense, but they're intense about not the same things that I'm intense about. So
ah,
it has to overlap somewhere. Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same intensities, but it has to overlap a little bit, or else you'll both just be very intense in the opposite direction, and then there's no
yeah,
friends.
it's all very well. Intensity is all very well, but having some commonalities in what you're intense about is so important. The gym, the climbing gym, there would be people that are very want to master that, and you would want to master that ability yourself.
Well, and even in climbing, there are people who just show up and who just don't think about it. They just go there, they just do whatever feels right to them and they move on. And in climbing there's so much technique. I mean, there's like the centimeter movement of your toe, the whether you're, using your hip to go up or you're using your like obliques or whatever. I mean, it's so nuanced. It's so complicated. But some
right.
people just don't want to think about it, don't want to engage that way. So even I guess in climbing too, there is that level of complexity that not everyone will engage in. And I guess now that I am talking about this more, I do realize that I do look for people who are also very intense into the complex technique of climbing versus just being strong in general. Because I mean, strength will get you somewhere in the gym, but not in the same way as all the technique that you need. So yeah, I guess even in that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so gifted to actually have a physical activity like that has this deep complexity to it. Every time you went to the gym, there'd be something different about it, or something a bit
Yes,
different.
so difficult to master. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if I ever will, and that is making it exciting. Every time I go, I learn a little something new.
Do you have other things that you feel like that is really nourishing all that complexity and intensity?
Honestly, yeah, I feel like right now in my life that is a pain point because I feel like I want to have more things that I can really invest in. And that brings us around to relationships in the romantic sense, because I think that would be something that I would love to invest in and love to like both invest and receive from, because I think that is in a really healthy relationship, you can invest a lot and you can receive a lot back. And so I think that is something that I would want to be having that complexity, that kind of engagement with. But unfortunately, that has not been my experience so far. Yeah, because it's hard to find somebody who can be matching those kind of intensities in a romantic relationship and even in a friendship, obviously. But
Even thinking about the statistics, the odds that you'd meet someone even gifted, let alone
yes,
someone who has, as we talked about there previously, the same sorts of interests and
ugh,
willingness to go to areas of interest that you have. So you've endeavoured to problem solve by going online and doing the online dating scene, or tell our listeners how many dates have you been on in the last year?
ugh. I think it's been about 2 years total that I've been
Yes.
really working it online, and it's been over 100 dates. I lost count. I can't. It's hard to keep track, and I don't. I think I would feel very discouraged if I genuinely did keep track.
Yes,
Just
fair enough.
because, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many people out there, and
Yes.
it's I'm a very in-person person. I'm a people person. I'm usually pretty good at judging people, like, pretty quickly when I meet them. Even meeting online, I think I can get a good sense of someone and have a 5-minute conversation with them, but on the
Mm.
apps, it's so hard to tell what someone's like from some pictures,
Yeah.
a couple words, and, you're texting with them, and I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of texting. It gets boring pretty quickly. And maybe that is the partner's fault. I mean, I can have interesting conversations, but it's so hard to weed out people who it's hard to find the complex people online. It's really, really difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gone so many dates and meet like maybe one or two people in a year of going on like at least one date a week. It's not a good experience per se. But I mean, at the end of the day, how else are you going to meet people? I don't go to work in person. I
Yeah.
could try to date at the climbing gym, but I haven't met
Yeah.
anyone there.
No.
There's that whole don't shit where you eat sort of.
Even from a work perspective, where you might suspect you could meet people that you have quite a lot of things in common with, working online, working remotely, you're not going to have anything other than perhaps a friendship with your colleagues. I know we've talked about sort of future study and getting into perhaps the psychology stream and having more in-person interaction with people that may have more in common with you. That's on the horizon, isn't it, still, as a possibility?
Yes, definitely thinking very hard about moving out to Denver. And I do think, yeah, Denver as a whole attracts more intense people. I think there's a pull out there, and especially with all the intense nature nearby. I mean, like there's mountains and you can go rock climbing and it does tend to attract some more intense people. So.
Rock climbing would be a great outlet. Any other outlets, do you think, for that complexity and intensity if it's not being met?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've really been thinking about that a lot lately too, and trying to find a better balance on that because my job right now is just one that I can't invest in. I mean, I cannot put my intensity in my job just because of the very nature of it. I work for a certain client, and there's certain things the client wants done, and there's not really room to do anything else. And so it's pretty boring, but I mean, there's not really any leeway to create more, do more. So work's kind of a dead end for me. Yeah, I just learning, trying to learn more about other stuff. For this winter season, I got some books on the bookshelf that are about the history of Detroit, and so sometimes it just that I feel that itch, and it's like, all right, I just need to find a topic that's kind of interesting and just try to research a ton of it and learn a ton of it. Sometimes that will scratch the itch, but it's
Yeah.
hard just because I am such a relational person. I feel like a lot of that intensity I want to be relational. Sometimes going online and going to different meetups for gifted meetups. So it's hit or miss. But sometimes you meet people there that you kick it off with, and then you try to reach out to them and be like, "Hey, let's have a one-off chat and chat about this." And so
Yeah.
sometimes that will be good and will give you a little outlet of just to have an intense talk about something.
That makes
It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, yeah, it is hard. Yeah, yeah. But that sounds like, yeah, some very useful, supportive things to do for yourself. And that's great to identify, just to be aware that you are a relational person. I personally find getting online is great. Obviously, chatting with you is always great. And also, creatively, if I feel like I really feel this deep yearning, I will write. That's my real outlet, and really write it all out, and you know scratch some of the bottom of the barrel, of what's inside
Yes.
me to explore and read some stuff, research, and yeah, that tends to be my go-to. I suppose I might. Well, I've got a husband. I've got a sort of a friendship, small friendship circle, which is really lovely. I feel like my relational needs may not be as perhaps as to say big. I don't know what the word might be, but as yours. But I certainly feel
Yeah.
like there is enough that way I can reach out to people. That could be the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, or somewhere,
True.
which
Yeah,
it
true.
must be interesting for you on that. Just on that note too, if you like, obviously we get on really well, but I'm very much an introvert. You're an extrovert. How much does that play a part? Do you think that extrovert? It means that you're probably more expressive about your intensity and your complexity. You're more likely to want to talk about it
Yes.
that way.
Yeah, I guess it does make it, I mean, kind of back to the initial definition of what we were talking about of intensity. I do feel a lot like I have to hold it back. And in order to even have relationships or friendships with a lot of people, with a large quantity of people, I have to hold that intensity back. And so have to sometimes this is trial and error of knowing, where I want to stop versus where somebody else wants to stop, and stopping early so that, they don't get upset or feel threatened or whatever. Yeah, it always feels like that really touchy balance, because then if I'm stopping so soon, I'm not getting my own relational needs met. So it's always, trying to push that balance and see if the friendship can survive. And so it's very,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is a bit harder. But I think maybe too, there's more room for friendships that are less intense, I guess. Since maybe because I'm an extrovert and I like getting out there and meeting new people, there's more room for more relationships. And so
Ah,
I can have some less intense relationships over here and try to cherry pick my really intense relationships
yeah.
and, kind of pull the intensity out of a few relationships and try to, spread the intensity.
Yeah.
Good.
So do you think that's kind of a compartmentalizing
Oh,
strategy?
a little bit, yeah, because I think I take my personality and kinda make it a little more normal packaged, have people to climb with, because if I just came in and put everything out there, people would be like, "Oh god," like, I've had that before, but, it's unavoidable because I think even for the people that I like to climb with, I want them to be thinking very intensely about their technique of belaying, which is like catching the other person. Because if they don't do that with the ropes, I could fall and hit the ground and really seriously get injured. So, in some senses, some of those things are kind of non negotiable for me. If someone is just there and saying, I don't want to think very hard about this, well, I don't know that I feel safe climbing with them in certain contexts because I need them to be thinking very hard about something that is very complex and could make me seriously injured. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Yes, that makes sense.
yeah, some of it is non-negotiable, but some of
Yeah,
it, yeah, I can show up and have a great time and have fun with them. If we're not doing partner climbs, we're just bouldering on the smaller walls, we can
right.
all just show up and have a great time and, have fun.
So that brings up a really interesting point that you've touched on there, that intensity goes so far into the life and death scenario, because really that's what you're saying here with climbing. It gave me this image of, yes, you could fall and absolutely do serious damage to yourself and your body. Like daredevils come to mind. And I remember too, when you went on holiday recently, you were sitting on the edge of a huge cliff with your feet hanging, legs hanging over, the kittens just looking at it. This sort of, is it a thrill seeking, or is it this existential life and death thing that can go to? It could go to this intensity.
Well, for me, a lot of the climbing stuff is the thrill of doing something that is so out of the ordinary and in many ways impossible. I mean, when I first started climbing and when I saw people climbing, if you go to the gym or even if you go to a big rock wall, I mean, it looks like a flat wall. It's just totally flat. It looks, I mean, I even when I go outside, I look at the wall and I say that's impossible. But then I've learned so much over the couple years that I've been climbing, that you learn where to put your fingers, you learn where to put your feet, you learn how to move your body, that you can climb up something that looks impossible. So even just the act of climbing itself, even in the gym, the little tiny pieces of plastic, I mean, you're doing something that when a normal person who has never climbed before looks at it, they're like, that's impossible. A human being cannot
Right.
do that. The thrill for me of doing the impossible is, it feels almost magic in that sense. There's always more to climb. There's always a harder thing to climb, harder, and you can always get better and you can get stronger. You can do all that. So yeah, I think that's the thrill and that feeling of mastery. Especially, I know I was on that vacation and hanging over the edge. There's a sense for me of, yeah, this is something that you can't do it anywhere else. There aren't big cliffs like that around. I mean, you're just, you're there and it's beautiful. It's just like this majesty almost. Is this nature that's incredible. And it's almost like, that I want to be a part of it somehow. I'm just sitting on the edge. There's all those big feelings, big nature, big intensity.
That's so fascinating about nature, and often a very gifted thing as well, to feel this great connection with it and intense feelings around it, and being in it so important. So I really appreciated you saying that.
The mountains or the ocean or just the
Yes.
big intense nature that is so
Yes.
vast and uncontrolled and wild and intense.
Anything else you want to add before we conclude?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've plumbed.
We
had a very intense discussion of intensity.
Thank you so much, Jenna. But
Yeah,
it was so good. Loved it. And yes, I feel like that was very satisfying, fulfilling, and I wonder, if our listeners would have anything to add. So we're very open to hearing what might be other questions around it, other explorations that other people have had about it would be really interesting. Thank you so much, Jenna. That was such a great chat.
Yeah, for sure. Same, Will.